What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Plus. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Shang-Chi, and I want to talk about the disgusting treatment, really, that it's gotten from Disney and Marvel so far, and that's not even, obviously when the movie comes out. So, this movie is difficult. It's a movie that obviously has some legs behind it, but the question is, how much does it have behind it? It literally is looked at as an experiment, which, they've not necessarily even walked back that comment, but obviously the stars of the movie have had a really big problem with them calling it that. And I completely agree with the stars, by the way, in the fact that whether or not this is a masterpiece or a complete garbage fire, or, whatever this ends up being, the way it's been talked about literally does sound like this is just a full-on experiment, even though it shouldn't be. And I think what really kind of set this video off, and really what I want to talk about the most too, is the most recent rumors we've heard about it, in that literally they're looking at what happens here to decide for Eternals. Like, what do we do with Eternals in terms of delaying it or not delaying it? And it really does connect to, I made like a rant video on my main channel, in this past week, talking about movie delays and how I'm sick of them. And so definitely, watch that, after this one, if you haven't watched that video already. But it really, to me, it connects in the way that, like, I think, if people want to go see this movie, they're going to go see this movie. If people don't want to go see this movie, they're not going to go see it. I guess it does get more into the politics of the stuff around the world and all that, and I'm not going to go too much into it, but it is sad. And really, like, I'm coming at it, by the way, from the perspective of, like, I've obviously been a Marvel fan for a long time. I've watched all the movies. I've watched the shows. I am maybe feeling a little burnt out. I haven't enjoyed everything equally. And for Shang-Chi specifically, like, I kind of want to see it. And I'll be honest, like, some of the clips, like him fighting, like, in the bus, the martial arts stuff, I love martial arts. I am a martial artist myself, so, like, I love seeing that stuff. I'm not like that, but, I'm really into that kind of stuff, like Jackie Chan kind of stuff. So that may by itself get me to see it, but I'm not sold. I'm not sold on the movie. I'm not. And I'm sorry, if that offends certain people. And I assume actually many people are like that. This is just a character that not many people know, not many people care about, and it may very well be one of the lowest grossing, if not the lowest, Marvel movies ever. And the issue I have with it is this, okay? I'm not wishing for its death. I'm not wishing for it to fail or suffer. If it's a good movie, I want it to do well. I want people to see it, and I'm rooting for it. I really, really am. At the same time, if it does bad, it does bad. Or if, I should say, like, if it's a bad movie, I would prefer, if it is a good movie, it to be kind of supported and it to make money, versus, maybe it is a good movie and nobody sees it. But there's the issue, and there goes more, I guess, to the politics of the stuff around the world and the video I made on the main channel this past week, in that I don't buy that as an excuse. I think there's plenty of evidence to suggest that's not true. It's just an easy excuse that companies are using now in terms of blaming that, when you have movies like Godzilla vs. Kong in March, which is a good example of movies that were on both streaming and, in theaters, actually when things were much worse, and it did pretty darn well. Even Mortal Kombat, to a smaller extent, F9 killed it, $700 million plus only in theaters. You had Free Guy doing really, really well and not really having a drop off from, I mean, it did, but not a big one, from week 1 to 2. There's others, and again, I discussed that in those videos. So basically, what I'm kind of separating myself from Shang-Chi, what I'm also more upset about is that, it's funny to just see Marvel consider an experiment. I love to see Hollywood burn to the ground. It's one of my main character traits. And so when you have the movie stars, which, and by the way, the guy who plays Shang-Chi, he does seem like a really nice guy and like a really genuine person, so I don't really wish any ill harm. But generally, Hollywood elite, Hollywood, I'm not a fan. I'm actually violently opposed. So when I see movie studio fighting against the movie that it produces and made, and it's coming out, and they're fighting each other, and you have stars fighting each other, I love to see it. I live to see it even, right? So it's great to see. But so it's laughable. It's laughable. But I also do look at it as like a negative thing, like more of like an upset anger thing, when it's like, well, this is not a good, like they're calling it an experiment, right? This is the worst possible experiment you could ever be doing, and you're not really taking into account loads of different things. Same kind of discussion again with like Venom and all this stuff, where it's like, if Shang-Chi doesn't do good, what are you going to blame? That's the main question. What are you going to blame if the movie doesn't do good? I think, and obviously movie scores are kind of out for it. People have given their I guess the first wave of reviews and impressions, and they're really good. At the same time, people really loved Black Widow, and that was getting all the praise in the world as well. And it really feels like word of mouth stopped that movie from doing, it did pretty okay, made, they've said in the court documents and stuff, made almost 500 million combined on Disney Plus and in theaters. That's not too bad. I mean, for a Marvel movie, it's definitely on the low end, but it's not too bad. But I really think it was not a spectacular movie. It was nothing special. And I do think that word of mouth stopped it from doing like the next level. So we'll see for Shang-Chi, right? Are we hoping that just, things work out for it? But if it doesn't, or say it's just not very good, it's a character that we don't really know, they don't really do enough to make us care about him, and say the people decide that we just don't want to see, or they don't want to see the movie, well, then you're going to delay Eternals for that. The issue, I think the thing behind the scenes is this, and I've been saying this for a long time, they're scared about the Eternals. I think that movie, I guess, people are obviously talking about Shang-Chi, like, could that be a big flop because it's only in theaters, it's not going anywhere else until 45 days after. But you look at Eternals as, like, they've talked that movie up more than I've ever seen them talk any movie up, and I really think part of that is because they're worried. I'm not a fan of how it's looked. I think the newest trailer does look a lot better and does, like, grab me a bit more than the first trailer, but it's not a movie I'm making plans to see in theaters. I truly could care less about the film in general, which says something. And I think there's a lot of other people like that as well. By the way, I'm not talking down to people that do like it. If you like Eternals, go see it. Go see it 100 times. I don't care. Good for you. And I say that, again, in a not condescending way. I want you to enjoy movies. I want you to enjoy life. So if you want to go see it, by all means, go ahead. But it's just, I think they're afraid. I think they're afraid for that movie because it's, again, that one would only be in theaters as well, and we'll have to see if they put that on Disney Plus to kind of offset the numbers, because I think that's the movie that has a lot of stock into it, and then it's got a lot of potential to just look really, really bad if it completely fails. Whereas Shang-Chi, I guess it's kind of the same thing, but I feel like it's just it's a smaller scope, smaller scale kind of thing. So we'll have to see how it goes. Again, I do laugh. I do think it's funny when they, when they call it an experiment, and to see them kind of bickering amongst themselves. Like, we're not an experiment. We're a movie that's going to be pushing representation. It's like, that's very funny to see those two sides like attack each other and see them kind of crash and burn. And so in that way, I don't really care what happens to the movie. But at the same time, if it's good, I want it to do well. Ultimately, I don't want any movies to be delayed also, right? Don't delay Eternals. Just because Shang-Chi does good or bad, you should not be moving Eternals. Because to be quite honest with you, you can move Eternals wherever you want to move it. It's not going to make, in my opinion, that much of an impact. As I've been saying, if you put a movie like that movie, and it's only in theaters, and that's the only way you can see it, we have enough evidence to suggest, yes, maybe you're going to make a little bit less money than you would in like a normal year. And F9 probably is the best example. 700 million, crushed it, did similar to what other Fast and Furious movies did, but also didn't do as well, right? Normally they get closer to $1 billion, if not over $1 billion. But yet again, it's been several years since 8. This one was, in my opinion, not as good as 6, 7, or 8. It was definitely kind of on the lower end of that. It didn't have people like The Rock in it, right? So there are things you could even make the argument where it's like, well, if they had this, they had that, maybe it makes an extra 50, 60, maybe it gets closer to 800 million. So the point is, I think if the movie is actually just a fun time or good or people like it or there's positive word of mouth, it will not suffer because of the stuff around the world. Maybe a little, but by pushing it to like the middle of next year, you're not going to improve any. It's not going to change, I think, anything about those sales, unless you're willing to push it like 3-4 years down the line, but it's not going to change much. So in my opinion, that's all excuses. I would love for Shang-Chi and, the actor and stuff, for them to kind of, fight back against Marvel when they say, well, you're just an experiment. They could say, well, you're brain dead. You don't know what you're doing. You're thinking, you're blaming one thing on something and it's not actually true. I'd love to see that. And maybe we'll see that, when Shang-Chi comes out. Okay, so let me know what you guys think in the comments below. As always, make sure you guys are subscribed to this channel. Hit the bell icon so you guys know when all these videos go up. I do a brand new video on the channel every single day, and so I hope to see you guys for tomorrow's video.